All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Social Studies TIC session. We're excited to have such a good crowd here today. We've got a great lineup of presenters, all kinds of good information and good ideas that we'll get today. All right, and to get us started today, our first presenters today are from Boone. This is Alicen Morley and Jill Thieben, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to them.
Alrighty, thank you, Alex. Let's see if my microphone is working here. Hello. There it is. Just a little closer then. Okay. So my name is Alicen Morley. As he said, I'm a social studies teacher at Boone High School. Before we get started with introductions, though, we would really appreciate it if you could select someone in your team at your table whose cell phone you wouldn't mind installing the Expeditions app onto. Your Wi-Fi for that cell phone needs to be on the Expeditions Wi-Fi. It's a free Wi-Fi. There's no password. But in order to collaborate with our iPad, that cell phone has to be on the same Wi-Fi. So if someone in your team would do that, we'd really appreciate it. If someone would also feel free, download the Viewmaster app. That's a different app, also free app. It can be the same person. We're going to demo both apps one by one. So you'll have the opportunity to look at both, but we just need both apps there for you.
There are a couple different Viewmaster apps. The one that we're looking at is Viewmaster Destinations.
Yeah, you have to be very particular when you search these things in your app store. Okay, so about me. Before here, I'm from New York originally, born and raised, 27 years in New York. I was getting my PhD at Syracuse University, and I taught there at Syracuse University for 3 years or so, and I also taught at Lemoyne College. My husband got a job at Iowa State, so that's how we came out to Iowa. Love it here ever since, and I decided that I'd like to try the K-12 experience, and I've been in love ever since. So I teach 10 through 12 social studies at Boone High School, and I teach a lot of our concurrent enrollment courses there.
My name is Jill Thieben. I have been a teacher for 9 years. I started my career at Linville-Sully teaching 6th and 8th grade language arts at Linville-Sully, and then had the opportunity to work back in the town of Boone, where I was an English teacher. I teach right now 9th grade English and senior advanced composition. And for the past 2 years, I've also worked through the TLC grant as our high school's technology coach. So I've been teaching part-time and working with teachers part-time with technology since we got the grant last year.
Okay, so our background, this is just a little overview of the type of tech that we have in our classrooms and how we got there. When I first came to Boone, the teachers before me were up for textbook review, and they decided in lieu of textbooks to buy iPads. So when I came in, I had 30 iPads in my classroom, and so I got very familiar with iPads very fast. And I've kind of loved the technology aspect of teaching ever since. Then in the fall of 2015, we went one-to-one with Chromebooks. My iPads were then put down to the elementary schools, so we do have one cart of iPads available in the high school. Those are the ones you're using today, actually. So those are the ones that we use for this activity. And then I was awarded the One Classroom at a Time grant last year, and with those funds, I purchased the cardboards that you see that are quite literally cardboard on your desks, so that we were able to get started with this. There's a link there. We just want to show you that cardboard doesn't have to be expensive. As you can see, mine is the very low budget one, and it works quite well. If this page will load, it's just going to show you that Google has a whole array of cardboard options. You can go everywhere from the low budget, like I have, to this really nice, fancy plastic model with integrated Wi-Fi and blah, blah, blah. So it works on every budget. These were $10 to $15 a piece.
Yeah, so you can kind of see the range of devices that they have available and some of the prices for those if you check that link out. Alicen came to me this fall trying to figure out, she had all of these great resources. She has these cardboards that were provided by the One Classroom at a Time grant, and wanted to figure out how she could start using those in her classroom. And we talked a lot about what your goals for your students were going to be, and we just started experimenting with different VR apps that were out there. And one of the first that I found was Viewmaster. Some drawbacks to this are that it's expensive. It's about $15 for the app for every device that you install it on. But when I was investigating these, I found the Destinations app that had a free demo on it that coincidentally fit with the curriculum that Alicen was focusing on, which was Greeks and Romans, and we were looking at the Parthenon. So that's kind of where we started. We designed an experience for students to just kind of play around with the demo on Viewmaster, where they got to kind of do a self-guided tour through the Parthenon. It's kind of cool. There are little links that if they just kind of look at, it will take them to the next spot on their tour, and they can experience and walk through it kind of on their own. Yeah, do we want to have them?
Has everyone been able to download the Viewmaster app on their cell phones? We just want to know if we can get started on that now before we move on. If not, we'll continue moving through the presentation and come to it later.
Yeah, we just kind of want to give you guys a chance to see what that demo looks like and what students experienced first. So you've got a cardboard at each table. And you basically, there's Velcro at the top. You can slip your phone in there once you've got the Viewmaster app started, and there should be a demo.
So some cell phones are much larger than others, and so this flap won't close. That's totally okay. There's a piece of rubber band here that's meant to grip your cell phone and keep it in place. So you just kind of gently set it, and you're good to go. Students are really great with that, actually.
So we'll kind of bring you back to the front. What we really liked about Viewmaster Destinations, again, was that it was student-paced. They could go through it on their own, decide where they wanted to explore. Things would pop up and explain what they were seeing. It was very student-driven. The problem, of course, was there wasn't that much content that we could find at a price that was affordable for us. Right. So we kind of moved on from there and started looking at Expeditions, which is free.
So, I turn this on, didn't I? Yeah. Expeditions is a little bit different, excuse me, than Viewmaster in the sense that you need two people, two different devices in order to make it work. You need a follower and a leader. So it's more like going to a museum and experiencing that guided tour sort of experience. So you need two devices, which is why each table has two devices. And what we really liked about this experience was that a student can lead and a student can follow, and then they can take turns, right? They can swap back and forth who's leading and who's following. So,
Alicen, should we talk about the first time you tried to use this?
Yeah, we should talk about that.
We went to Versailles, right?
Yeah, let's talk about epic fails. So I took my DMAC Western Civilizations class to the Palace of Versailles, and it was the first time they've ever experienced cardboard, so they were totally blown away. So the first 10 minutes were like the coolest teacher experience of my life. It was really awesome how, I mean, you just see these kids like walking around the room with these cardboards on their faces. It was like true teaching, right? I was like, yes, we're finally there. And then I was leading, and the entire class was following. So I knew a bit about Versailles, but it's not like I've ever been there. So I wasn't this great expert at it. And I felt like I kind of struggled through the leading part of it and trying to come up with that teacher knowledge that we always want to have and always want to provide for our students. The nice thing about Expeditions is that it has info right on the leader screen, and it has questions. So I was able to ask those questions of the students while they were looking on. Things got dicey at about 15 minutes in when their eyes started to get really exhausted from constantly staring at the device. And once especially juniors and seniors have been doing this for 15 minutes, they're like, okay, what's next, right? So it was too long and not nearly independent enough for high school students who are very independent, and also their eyes were exhausted.
Yeah, we saw,
after 15 minutes.
We saw a lot of the students taking their headsets down and just kind of looking at it on their phone, losing kind of that immersive experience, and we were kind of disappointed by it, but it made sense. There's a warning when you start expeditions. It says you need to take breaks every 10 minutes to give your eyes a rest. So we had to kind of really go back to the drawing board and rethink how we could use this in your classroom so that it lets students rest their eyes and not be such a teacher-driven experience with her at the front just kind of rattling off all of the information that she saw in Google Expedition. So we thought about this for a while, and we came up with kind of a different solution, a different way. Instead of just one leader at the front, we came up with this idea. I'll let you explain it.
Yeah, so we decided that there were going to be student teams, and I was fortunate enough to have 30 iPads and 30 Google Cardboards, so I could have teams of 2. Here we're doing teams of 4, your table team, just for Wi-Fi's sake. Our Wi-Fi was upgraded that summer because we went 1-to-1, and so I was lucky enough to have great Wi-Fi for this experience. And every kid has a cell phone now, so I really lucked out that way, right? And especially they have a smartphone now. So we just were fortunate enough to have the ability to have teams of 2. We'd have one leader on the iPad and then a follower on the cardboard, and they would see one screen, and the leader would read the information and talk about it, and the follower would discuss their experience, what they're seeing, what they're exploring, and then they would trade on the next page. So this was really great because the leader student was able to dictate what the follower student was seeing and how quickly they were moving through the material and the information. So a lot of student voice and a lot of student choice. And what we got with that was we're taking a break, right? So everyone's switching roles every now and again and taking a break. So we didn't have any burnout. And we had high engagement for 1.5 class hours, which is how long it took to get through the whole Roman Colosseum and Trajan's Market and the Pantheon, which is what I wanted to get through with those experiences. So to keep 10th, 11th, and 12th graders highly focused for 45 minutes one day and then 25 the next was pretty remarkable. So after my epic fail, I kind of had a really great teacher win.
Another thing that you kind of implemented with that second one is you developed your own questions for students to answer as they went along the expedition, not just relying on the expedition questions. How did you kind of decide what questions to
thanks for reminding me of that. So expeditions is fantastic if you're an elementary and middle school teacher. We believe that the questions are difficult enough for those level of students. They're not critical or analytical enough for the high school level. High school kids, they're so independent, they're like, oh, well, the information's found right on this screen. So instead of asking the follower to answer, I'm just going to write it down, right? I'll just do that as the leader and write it down and get this worksheet done. So I had to basically trick them all and come up with my own questions that were higher level. And so they're really applied questions about how do these people view religion in their society and what examples do you see within their architecture, right? Do you see examples of Egyptian and Greek architecture in the Roman, buildings? So I had to come up with more critical questions for the higher level. So those of you that are high school teachers, there's going to be a bit more planning involved with this, just trying to come up with those questions. But when you do, it's really worth it. Those are the experiences the kids remember and talk about throughout the school. So.
I'm going to pull up on the iPad real quickly what it looks like on the leader side on expeditions, and you can kind of see the questions that pop up. They have different levels of questions. They've got a beginner question, an intermediate, and then an advanced question. For those of you who are familiar with QAR, I would say the beginner question is like a right there question. They give you the information that the teacher can read to the class or the leader at the front, and then the beginner question is basically asking a question that can be found right in the passage that the teacher just read to them. The intermediate is more of an opinion-based question, and then they get into the analysis with that more advanced question. So there are some levels to that, but they weren't really fitting the needs that Alicen wanted, so she took the next step and developed her questions further.
That's really tiny, so I'll just read it out to you. The beginner question is, what was the most popular event held in the Colosseum? And that's found directly in the text. The intermediate question is, how do you think the Colosseum's restoration efforts affect tourism? Also pretty much right in the text, but then that little added piece of tourism. And then the final advanced question, why do you think reliefs from older structures were reused on the Arco di Constantino? So also kind of implied in the question, So like I said, juniors and seniors they're good, right? They're going to hammer this out in 10 minutes kind of thing without actually consulting one another. At least that's what I found. Maybe you'll find something different at your school. But yeah, definitely great questions for elementary and middle school already in place for you.
I'll go back to the iPad here and just kind of show you what it looks like from getting on in the first place and finding an expedition that you want, and then we'll give you guys a chance to play kind of in the same way that Alicen set up with her students, where we've got an iPad at your table where you can have one person serve as the leader, and then if you've got that expeditions downloaded on your phone, you guys can be the followers and guide yourselves through that tour. So Expeditions is on all of the iPads, and when you log in, it'll say, it might have an opening screen that asks if you want to be a leader or a follower. And if you are on the iPad, you choose leader, and this is the page that comes up. And then you can start searching for the expedition that you want to lead your students on. And there are a lot of really, really great expeditions. There are a lot that are social studies related. Obviously, Roman ruins we talked about. They have some Greek. We went to Versailles.
They have some modern stuff, like right here is World War II. Aztec and Mayan ruins. I do world history and Western Civ, so I just don't have the opportunity to get to South America and Central America, but really great experiences as well. There's also a space exploration one, which would be really fun when you get to the space race. So if you teach that in your classroom.
There are a lot of great social studies ones. Like I said, there are a lot of great science-related ones as well. Through the human heart, you can take a trip to the moon, to the bottom of the ocean. And they also have, what I think is kind of neat, a lot of great college tours. So you can go on virtual visits to different colleges. Some of them are like the Roman ruins, where you're going to an actual location and seeing the 360 images. Some of them are more like museum exhibits taken from places like the Google Cultural Institute, where they'll have maybe a piece of art that you can see kind of up close. The one that we did with Alicen was Roman ruins, so that's what I'm going to search for right now.
Real quick, as Jill's searching here, we had a question come in from Zoom about if you've ever had students that are hesitant to download apps onto their personal phones.
Yeah, I did actually have students that were saying that I didn't want to do that, and it was a real quick fix for me. I just said, hey, download it for this one class hour, delete it at the end. That's totally fine by me. It's a completely free app. They don't ask for any of your personal information. And that kind of put the student at ease. Another student, their data was full on their phone, and they couldn't part with any one of the 20 versions of Minecraft that they had on their phone. So I just simply said to that student, okay, well, then the experience won't be quite as immersive for you, but you're welcome to join at a team that has 2 iPads. I did have one case where I have a couple of students that don't have cell phones yet, and so they just did an iPad experience, so it wasn't completely 3D, but it still worked out great for them. So that student joined in on there. So that's just kind of how I've handled it in a case-by-case basis, and it really hasn't been an issue at all. I haven't heard anything from parents about students downloading these apps. I mean, Google is a very well-known developer, right? So it's trusted. We all had those Viewmasters when we were kids, right? So it's very trusted. But I do send out weekly emails to my parents, just letting them know what's going on, and I did mention that, so perhaps that's why I didn't get any feedback concerns.
Going back into the iPad, once you've found the expedition that you want to lead, you basically download it, and then when you tap on it, it takes you into it. You have to kind of hit play first for it to start. What the students will see on their end is they're looking for a leader to follow. So they will find your name, and they'll join that expedition, and it will kind of have a waiting screen until you start the expedition and hit play. And then when you do, then you can scroll through, and there are different points of interest on each of these little information panels that they have. So if I click on Arco de Constantino, it moves the image to that location, and it will have an arrow on the student screen that says, hey, look this way, until they find what you've pointed at. And then you can talk about the information that's provided for them on that panel.
Just a note on this one, I think we're all aware that that's the Colosseum. This one has a tiny glitch. It's reversed too. It's reversed the Arco de Constantino and the Colosseum. So when you select Colosseum, it actually takes you to the Arco de Constantino. So as a teacher, you still have to do some of that troubleshooting and fly by the seat of your pants, right, when you find something like that. But it's an easy fix, and the kids adapt quickly.
So I think what we want to do now is give you guys a chance to play with this a little bit. If we have one person on the iPad as a leader, anybody who has that app downloaded on their phone can try to be a follower and find the expedition that you set up. You can explore any of the expeditions that you find on there. You don't have to do Roman ruins. You can do whatever you want.
We also have more cardboards if there's anyone at the tables that would like to try their more than one cell phone. We can bring around some more cardboards.
Okay.
All right, everybody, we're going to get back to it and finish our presentation today. You're welcome to continue exploring, but if we could keep the chatter to a minimum, that'd be great so we can wrap it up here. Okay, so just an overview of places that we've traveled. Viewmaster, that demo, the Parthenon, we went with my students, and then my nice flop, the Palace of Versailles. I imagine there's a great way to be one leader and many, many followers. It's just not my style. I don't think it works well for me. I really like to see my kids being independent, and I think that's something we expect of high schoolers anyway. So that one didn't work for me. And then Rome. Within Rome are those four. The Roman Colosseum, within that is the Colosseum, the Pantheon, Trajan's Market. This travel guide link I have there, those are the questions that I created for my students. Some of them are actually the Google Expedition questions. I just happen to like them. But the answers are given right there for the leader. And so student teams will just go and answer those quick. But you do, in high school, still have quite a wide variety of students, and so you have to have some quick wins, right? So those questions were quick wins for those students that struggle with the higher level thinking and questions like that. So those are the places that we've definitely traveled. Jill and I have explored more, but not with students, to be our guinea pigs. So those are the ones we've used with students. Lessons we've learned. Definitely pay attention to that disclaimer on the beginning of Google Expeditions that says, give your eyes a rest. No one had to change any glasses prescriptions or anything. We didn't really damage permanently, but students were getting tired and having to pull away from, and that just kind of ruins the overall experience for kids. So be cognizant of the fact that probably the younger the student, maybe the less time they can be staring at that with that. So think about those things. Think about what fits best for you, a teacher-centered lesson or a student-centered lesson, right? So students guiding themselves or you guiding your students. I imagine it varies with grade level as well as with teaching style and with the students that you have in your classroom. So think about those things. Wi-Fi issues. So what we had was that all of our iPads were connected to our school Wi-Fi, and our students aren't allowed on that network. They're only on the guest network for obvious, we don't want any viruses kind of concerns, right? We had to get our iPads essentially broke off of the school Wi-Fi so that they were able to get on the guest network in order for this to work. You have to be on the same Wi-Fi network. It just won't work otherwise. So think about if you have a Wi-Fi capacity at your school that can handle this, and also if you can put those devices on the same network. Depth of knowledge with expeditions questions for high school students. So as I've already emphasized, I had to go deeper and I had to go higher order with my students. Think about with your students if you would have to do that.
And then the last kind of link on there is just a link to our school technology blog, talking about some of the experiences that students had. So if you're curious, you can click on that link and check it out.
Jill actually contributes to it a lot, and she's a really great writer, so I encourage you to read it.
Moving forward, we have some goals and plans for where we would like to go with VR. We have purchased an upgrade to ThingLink. I don't know if if we have a lot of teachers who are using ThingLink, but they have the ability to edit and create your own VR experiences. ThingLink 360 is what that's called. So that would be a lot more similar to the Viewmaster experience, where just basically by looking, you hover over a dot that you create and some information pops up automatically. You can link to different locations within one ThingLink. You can link to another ThingLink. If I will pull this up and let's see what happens here on my Mac. I have an example of one of the 360 videos from ThingLink, and if you want to try to pull that up on your phone and use it with one of the cardboards, you can. Looks like it's being kind of slow, but you can kind of get a sense for the experience. Right now, they don't have a whole lot of educational ones out there. They're kind of more commercial, but you get a sense for how it works. We'd like to be able to create our own so that Alicen can have that kind of student-centered experience that she wanted that fits exactly what she's looking for with her curriculum. And we also wanted to try to experiment with documenting our hometown Boone and creating some 360 VR experiences of the history of Boone, looking at some historical locations, our historical society, some of our older buildings, and obviously kind of the legacy of our train town, that kind of thing, and having students create the materials for that.
It doesn't get more submersive, right, than the student-created work being used to teach the other students about that event, right? So that's really the goal. That's our next level, is that not only is it student-centered in experience, but it's student-created as well.
It's about $100, $120 for a year subscription to the ThingLink 360. And for school-wide purposes, we created one account that all of our teachers will be able to use for that. If they want to experiment with it, we won't probably have very many teachers that do, but just kind of wanted to make you aware of that possibility. And then finally, we would like to work on writing some grants. The Boone Educational Endowment Foundation, or BEEF, has some grants available for us. And with that, we'd like to maybe move away from the cardboard headsets towards those more sophisticated actual, like the Viewmaster headsets. And we'd also like to work on purchasing a set of smartphones for the school so that students do not have to download it on their own phones, and we don't have to worry about Wi-Fi issues or cracked screens or anything like that, that we would have that for teachers across our district to be able to check out.
Yeah, that is probably something that we should have mentioned. That another issue we ran into is I think there are more students with broken phones than there are students with, you know, good phones. And so we had the issue of kids trying to look through the cardboards at this broken phone, and it was like, you know, a kaleidoscope of interesting things, and really not helpful at all. So you have to improvise even more, and sometimes have groups of 2, 3, 4 on the one device. And so with our own school set, not like I can call out to anyone, but just Wi-Fi smartphones, right? We'd be able to achieve this and know that they're safe and secure all the time.
So another thing that we're working on, if we do want students to be able to kind of create their own experiences, we're trying to figure out, well, how exactly do we capture 360 images? There's a device called Camelapse. It's basically a rotating stand that you can put any phone or camera on, and it will help you take kind of time-lapse pictures, 360 images. We're still experimenting with that. We're in the early stages and figuring out what will work with ThingLink. I know they have kind of specific guidelines for what kind of images to use, but that's where we're heading from here. We're about out of time, but real quickly, we'd like to field any questions that you guys have. Yes.
You know, we're one-to-one with the books. Can you just get through a cardboard a map of like the Google Play Store and just instead of doing it three-dimensional, like I was just doing it without the dual screen, just looking around like this station. Can you just do that on a computer and not have like a cardboard?
I do believe Expeditions and Viewmaster are cell phone and iPad only. I would wager that there's probably some app we haven't explored for the Chromebooks that could give you a panoramic view of something. But that's just not in our wheelhouse yet because we were fortunate to have the tech.
If you
Expeditions is moving fast, I have to say. Like every week that I log in, there's more and more expeditions to be had. So I think this is a really popular tool, and I think we're going to see Google developing it, more so than they've given us on Google Docs or Excel or anything else we'd like to upgrade, right? So. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.